It's great to be given this opportunity to speak my opinion about communication devices, and to demonstrate the way I use my device. Remember, there is no wrong or right way to communicate using an eye gaze device. It's what works for you, which is different for everyone. This presentation is my attempt to tell you what I know about communication devices, and what software I use to communicate, little tricks and hints about these devices. It's just a raw view on the good, the bad, and the ugly on communication devices. My name is Charlie Wren, and I was diagnosed with ALS 7 years ago. I was a heavy-duty mechanic, which allowed me to work closely with technologies and computers. My progression started in my hands and arms, so it wasn't long before I couldn't use a computer, and went about a year without using one. Like most people with ALS, I stopped using social media, using email and texting, because it just became too difficult. Once my voice was gone, I borrowed a Tobii communication device, and that's where my communication device adventures began. I'm currently paralyzed, with a feeding tube, and trached, so having a communication device and knowing how to use it is so detrimental. I live in a farm town by Bakersfield, in Central California. Now, let the communication device adventures begin. At first, I'm going to refer to the Windows-based communication devices, and will eventually speak about the new Tobii TD Pilot Eye Gaze communication device, which is an Apple iPad, running the iOS operating system. Currently no communication devices are compatible with Windows 11, as far as I know, due to its outdated hardware. Devices that currently run Windows 10, will be supported by Microsoft until 2025, which means, if you get a new device right now, in 3 years it won't be supported by Microsoft.
Oh, hell no!
So, it won't be long until communication device manufacturers will be forced to upgrade their internal hardware, so they can run the current version of Windows. Something to be aware of: the more programs you have on your device, and the older your device is, the more glitchy your device becomes. They freeze up, leaving you without communication until your caregiver notices. The screen goes black for a few seconds, and can take up to 10 seconds to recover, and sometimes the eye gaze program just turns off. Salesmen will say their device doesn't have these kinds of problems, but all devices do. Salesmen will always compare their device to the Tobii's, and make out that Tobii is the big bad wolf, that they are overpriced and underpowered. Well, all communication devices are way overpriced and underpowered. The eye gaze cameras and software for eye gaze is extremely taxing on a device, taking up to 75% of your device's resources at idle, and up to 100% when being used. These devices are already underpowered right out of the box. Salesmen will never tell you, most non-Tobii communication devices use a program called Grid 3 to communicate, but the salesman will make you think it's their own software that they've developed. They will tell you that their software is better, easier to use, compared to the Tobii, that their device eye gaze cameras are better than Tobii as well. Now, here's a little secret: the Grid 3 software is manufactured by a company called Smartbox. Tobii Dynavox bought out Smartbox in 2018, but because of the monopoly laws in England, Tobii never absorbed Smartbox into their company. So, Tobii is indirectly the owner of Smartbox, and the Grid 3 software that all non-Tobii's communication devices use. Now, the third part of the little secrets. All non-Tobii communication devices use out-of-date Microsoft Surface Pros. That's right again. You're actually getting an older Microsoft Surface Pro, not even the newest Surface Pro, and not something that they manufactured themselves. Most device manufacturers put their own bezels around the Surface Pro, with their name, and calling it their own. Now, to be fair, the device manufacturer iTech is the first manufacturer of communication devices. Like Tobii, they have always used their own eye gaze cameras, and their own software. In the past year, a few other device manufacturers have started to develop their own eye gaze cameras, but it's only a few. So, if you have a communication device, and it's not a Tobii, it's still a Tobii in a way, inside a Microsoft Surface Pro. Salesmen will demonstrate an older Tobii device, with the older Tobii cameras, which don't pick up your eyes as well. They will show you Tobii's stock communication software, called Communicator 5. Then, they will show you their device with newer cameras, and running Grid 3 software. Most people with ALS think that using Grid 3 software is a more user-friendly experience, compared to Tobii's Communicator 5. The end result is people choosing a device that picks up their eyes better, and software that's easier to use. It's not really comparing apples to apples, leaving some people getting tricked into a device. The good news is, you can get Grid 3 software for your Tobii. You can try it out for free for 60 days. I highly recommend everyone to try it out. So, things to ask a salesman before you decide which device to get. Does this device use Grid 3 software? Is this device a Microsoft Surface Pro? Who makes the eye gaze cameras? Is this device compatible with Windows 11? These 4 questions will make a salesman squirm. Most communication devices, people just use to communicate, but they can be used for so much more. You can run a business, do your finances, write music, and even play video games. It can be your own personal entertainment center. You can watch TV shows, movies, and do social media, which connects you to the outside world. There are a lot of different ways to use your communication device, to achieve your needs. For myself, I found using the stock programs that came with my Tobii to be too slow and glitchy. I struggled for a month after I started using my Tobii, until I found a new way to use my device. I use third-party apps to do everything I need, and to speak. It allows me to switch from one thing to another quickly. From surfing the internet, to speaking, and back. I use my Tobii in gaze selection mode, which puts an eye gaze mouse toolbar on the side of my screen. It's called Tobii's Windows Control. That way I can look at the screen, and not be rushed to make a selection. I can more accurately control my device by being relaxed, not being rushed, and when I'm ready, select my function. You will have professionals say your device can't do this, or that, but it can. A communication device can increase your quality of life living with ALS. Now, it's time to talk about the new Tobii Dynavox TD Pilot eye gaze communication device. It's the first eye gaze communication device that runs on Apple's iOS operating system. The TD Pilot came out about 6 months ago. Apple users versus Android Windows users is about 50-50. Now, the good. Apple makes high-quality products that are simple and easy to use. The new TD Pilot is no exception. The bad. Currently, the TD Pilot comes with over 30 different synthetic English voices, but you don't get the availability of hundreds of English voices like the Windows-based device. Like the other Windows-based devices, the TD Pilot uses an older generation iPad that isn't compatible with the newest iOS operating system. The ugly. For years Apple has prevented all eye gaze device manufacturers from using their iPad tablets for their devices, leaving half of all ALS patients to learn a whole new operating system. People that were Apple users were told, once you have to use eye gaze for communication, throw your iPad and iPhone away, get an Android phone, and learn how to use Windows. You can imagine the difficulties and shock for Apple users. To compound this problem, people had to do this when they had no voice or hands, and trying to learn all this using their eyes. Thank God that Tobii Dynavox came out with the TD Pilot, and Apple allowed them to use their iPad for their device. Most people don't know that any Windows 10 computer, laptop, or tablet already has everything you need for eye gaze communication. Microsoft has its own eye gaze program built right into Windows 10. All you need is an eye tracker from almost any manufacturer. You just enable this feature in the Windows settings, and away you go. It has all the features of other communication softwares that enable you to speak, surf the internet, and control programs. Some people might even find this program easier to use, compared to the communication program that they are currently using. You can get a used eye tracker for as little as $50 on eBay. Here's the way I use my communication device, which differs from everyone else. Like I said earlier in this presentation, I use my Tobii like a regular computer. I've never liked being trapped in a communication program that can take a few minutes to go from one environment to another, like speaking, then surfing the internet, to speaking again. This is what works best for myself, and might differ from what works for someone else. Remember, there's no wrong or right way to use your device. The only Tobii software I currently use is a program called Windows Control. It has mouse icons on a toolbar at the side of the screen, and you can eye gaze select which mouse functions you need to use. For myself, it's quick and easy to understand. It's a simple way to use your Tobii like a regular computer. It has all the functions of a computer mouse. You have left click, right click, scroll, click and drag, and double click. It has a customizable keyboard, and a few other features as well.
Hi. Windows Control is made up of two different kinds of control components, gaze selection and mouse emulation. What you're looking at on the screen on the right-hand side here is actually gaze selection. What it does is it allows for a two-step process to make selections and control your whole interface, including swipes and things like that that exist in Windows 8 and Windows 10. You lay out all of the commands along one side of the screen or the other. You can move them back and forth. And you make a two-step selection process by basically first thinking about what you're going to do, like if I'm going to click the Start menu, menu here. And then you look at your click until it registers, then you look back at the start menu and it'll zoom in and make its click to open the start menu like that. So that's the same thing for all of the different commands that you can do. And it allows you a much more relaxed way of clicking, because all the areas around the rest of the screen here, when you look around and when you move your gaze, nothing actually happens. But when you look at the taskbar, as you see, it's following my eyes as I look up and down, which allows you also to go into settings and control the different types of settings that exist with your eyes, changing the keyboard language, changing the different tasks on the taskbar, and so on. Adding different word prediction languages for the word prediction keyboard, the speed and the precision of the zoom, or even switching back and forth to whether or not you want to select with a physical switch or just using your gaze. So that's basically gaze selection. It's an absolutely fantastic way of using your eyes to control your entire interface.
Now, let's look at all the mouse icons in the Windows Control toolbar. The top icon looks like an upside-down teardrop, with a dot in the middle. It's not used that often. It's the mouse hover feature, and it's not the easiest feature to explain, so here I go. When you go to a website that has a drop-down menu, by using this icon and selecting the target, it will bring the drop-down menu down. If you ever moved your mouse cursor to a location on the screen, and something appears and then quickly disappears, then try this teardrop hover icon. It will hold it open. The online videos don't explain this feature very well, except to say it makes your cursor hover. Now, the next icon is the highlight drag and drop icon. It looks like two ovals with a little arrow through the ovals. You can use this feature to highlight an object or text. It's the same thing as holding the left computer mouse button down, and highlighting, or to move files and folders to different locations. You can highlight text to remove or relocate as well. Now, the next icon looks like a diamond with a dot in the center. It's used to scroll. Usually, you scroll up and down, but in Windows Control using this feature, you can scroll side to side as well, on websites or documents. The next icon is the left click. It's just like the left click button on a computer mouse. It selects whatever you want, on websites or programs. It's the most used mouse function. The next icon is complicated to explain, so I'll save it for the end. The next icon is the mouse right click. It's used to give you additional options for an icon, page, or program. The double left click icon. It's used to open programs and apps from your desktop. The next icon is the Windows Control keyboard. It's possible to modify this keyboard with a little programming. It has word prediction, which makes it quick and easy to use. You will notice little arrows at the sides of the keyboard. It's to scroll through the different keyboard option pages. It's to save room, and makes this keyboard quicker to use, compared to most eye gaze keyboards. I've modified my keyboard to fit my needs. I've switched the space bar and the enter button, due to accidental selections using my eyes. I moved the question mark, comma, and period selections as well. The little gear icon is for the Windows Control settings. That's where you can add or remove icons on the toolbar. You can set the speed of the keyboard gaze time, speed of the time to select your target, or select languages. If you have all the icons activated on the toolbar, it's extremely difficult to select an icon, due to its reduced size and its close proximity to the other icons. I usually keep 4 or 5 icons on the toolbar, for ease of use. It also depends what task I'm trying to do. on which icons I select to be on the toolbar. Now, the complicated icon we skipped earlier. It has multiple features all rolled up into one. When you select this icon with your eyes, it opens to a sub-menu with 6 choices. One option is an X at the bottom right. It's used to hide the window control toolbar into the side of the screen, leaving only a little arrow to bring the toolbar back. If you are watching a video or a movie, it's a nice way to hide the toolbar. The bottom center option has a line with 2 arrows pointing outward. It's used to move the Windows control toolbar from one side of the screen to the other. I generally like the toolbar to be on the right side of the screen, but sometimes I have to move the toolbar to gain access to the top right corner of the Windows box, if the program I'm using isn't scaled correctly. The Windows icon at the bottom left of the screen is to activate the Start menu for Windows. The upper left option has 3 overlapping rectangles. It shows all the current running programs onto the screen. It's meant to switch from one program to another quickly. The only time I use this feature is when I'm stuck in a program that is in full screen, without the Windows box, so I can exit. The option in the center that looks like a circle is used to activate Cortana. It's equivalent to asking Alexa or Siri for help. It's a good feature if you have your voice. The upper right option, which looks like an envelope, opens the Windows notifications menu. The top portion of this menu has no function. These are all the options in the Windows control toolbar. This is the program I use to control my Tobii. With Windows Control I can do so much more, compared to be locked into a communication program. You can run any third-party apps to achieve your needs, which is generally better than using the features in a communication program. Along with using Tobii's Windows Control, I use a program called Nextup Talker. Nextup Talker is a text-to-speech program that allows you to speak typed words or phrases. It's a highly customizable text-to-speech program, and I've modified it to fit my needs. It's not an eye gaze program, but using it with Windows Control, it acts like one. For myself, I find Nextup Talker to be quicker to communicate, compared to communicating in Communicator 5 or Grid 3. I personally don't like being locked into a program that's hard to escape. The way I use my Tobii, I'm free. I make shortcuts on my desktop for my programs, streaming services, and websites. It's easier to make shortcut links on my desktop than shortcut links in Communicator 5 or Grid 3. Everything I do is direct, not through the typical communication programs. Being that I use my Tobii like a regular computer, I don't need others to set up or maintain my device. I have the freedom to customize my device. Using Nextup Talker to speak, and Windows Control to control my Tobii, I've found everything to be more reliable, not dropping emails, text, or just the ease of running programs. Now, with Nextup Talker, there are a few advantages over traditional communication programs. You can simply reduce the program when you're not using it. If I'm surfing the internet and need to speak, it only takes a few seconds for me to expand Nextup Talker to speak. Please help. In Communicator 5 or Grid 3 it can take a few steps to achieve this process. I use simple 2-letter shortcuts in Nextup Talker to speak my most common phrases and needs. It's quick and easy. Hello, I'm glad to see you. Can you please suction my blowhole? Can you please tilt me forward? Can you please tilt me back? Can you please swing my Tobii towards me? Can you please swing my Tobii away from me? Good night. Good morning. Thanks. You can also do two-letter shortcuts to audio files, like sound effects, family audio clips, or even your voice clips from the past. You can use your voice banked voice or message recordings of your voice. It's easy to link your message voice into Nextup Talker, and it's something you can do yourself. You don't have to go to multiple categories to speak your needs. With Nextup Talker, you can customize the layout, the looks, colors, fonts, and quick access phrases on the side of the screen. It's easy to add additional voices to Nextup Talker, because voices are in the SAPI 5 format. All text-to-speech programs uses this format, except Communicator 5 and Apple products. I collect synthetic voices, and have over 150 voices. I use the Microsoft David voice, because it's clear, and everyone was already used to the voice, by the time I discovered other voices. I even have a few funny voices I use when I try to be funny, like Yoda, Queen Elizabeth, and a little kid singing.
With ALS, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear of ALS leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Once you start down the dark path of ALS, forever will it dominate your destiny.
I'm the Queen. All you Americans are rebellious. Remember, long live the Queen.
Hello everyone, I'm the little boy singing voice. I hope you think my voice is pretty.
Hey, how about me? I'm not just anyone, I'm the chipmunk voice.
Another advantage to Nextup Talker, you can not only change the speed of your voice, but the pitch of your voice as well. You can also change the flow of the phrasing, so you don't sound like a robot.
I am a robot, you can't sound like me.
You can assign where your voice comes out, regardless of your Windows settings. I have mine set where all sounds come out through my earphones, except when I speak. When I speak, it comes out from my speakers. This feature is extremely useful because I can listen to my music, watch movies, or even be on Zoom calls, and everything goes through my earphones without disturbing anyone, but when I speak, I can be heard. That's a look at some of my programs and shortcuts I use. It's also a glimpse into what I use to communicate. It's unconventional, but works for me. If you are having problems with your device, Bridging Voices is a non-profit organization that will help. They will go to your home, or have a Zoom call with you, to get your device all figured out. They can remote access your device, and make repairs. In my opinion, Tobii has the best hardware. Their devices are manufactured using Gorilla Glass for their screens, water resistance for outside rain, and its cases are extremely durable. Over the years I've had doorknobs hit my screen, my Tobii has been dropped a few times, and I've been caught outside in the rain. Even though it's a little bulky, its construction is almost bulletproof. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and learned a few tricks. I'm honored to have this opportunity to give my opinion, and little secrets on communication devices. Thank you, and remember, be good.